Good evening. Hi, everybody. This week on Peccadillo Sofa Club, we are celebrating the short film A Bloom. Here's the trailer. There we go. The film's excellent. It's got a really strong, enigmatic feel to it, both in the story, the character, and in the imagery. So I'm really pleased that we can discuss it tonight. Joining us, we've got Antony, the director. We've got Stefan, the leading actor. We've got Josh, the producer, and we've got Ropa, who worked on the editing. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you.
So, just for everybody at home, the film is available on YouTube via Peccadillo Pix. So you can watch it there, either free with ads, or you can pay a small amount to watch it ad-free. Antony, tell us about your journey to this film, and then maybe we'll talk about your how you got started in the film world.
Well, my name is Antony Rangel Coll. I'm from Venezuela. I think that's how my journey started with the film. Back at home, I moved to South Africa in 2017, and I went to film school after. And then for my final year, I decided to take directing and writing, and I started creating A Bloom. Basically, the concept came to me as a personal experience. There's one scene in the film where Nick goes to a bar and he meets this stranger, and that sort of happened to me in real life. And that sort of like detonated my creativity and being able to finally write something and take a chance to be a director.
It feels in the film like there's a huge amount of struggling with mystery in the film, both in Nick's character, the lead, Stefan's character, Nick, and in the interactions between all the characters. There's kind of a constant wondering and trying to feel each other out in the film. Was that kind of the main driver from that first enigmatic meeting of the stranger?
For sure, I'm a big thriller fan, and I think my goal with the film was for the audience to be able to get the stories that they wanted, and to put things together by themselves. So playing along with the character of the girl and the stranger, it was a lot of fun for me, because if I put myself as an audience, I want to try to figure out what's happening. And I think because also Nick doesn't really know what's happening to him, he doesn't have found the label to it. I think it also is attached to the main theme of the film.
And Ropa, in the behind the scenes footage, I noticed that you were on set, which there's some editors who like to stay locked away in rooms, and there's some editors who love to get out on the set and be involved and be there in the shoot. So maybe give us an idea of how you got into editing, and then what your kind of relationship with Antony on the film has been.
All right. So as an editor, I've always loved the idea of having control after the footage has already been done. But having been in situations where I've gotten an edit and I had no idea what happened on set, I realized that's a bit of a disadvantage, because you don't get to really contribute to the bigger story. And now you're just left having to put together little pieces together. So when I decided to take on editing, I wanted to get to know the actors. I wanted to understand where their heads were at when they were about to get into character, so that I could really remember when I was in post the moments where they felt confident about their performance, because at the end of the day, the actors are the ones that bring the characters to life. So if you're not really familiar with them, from my perspective as an editor, you won't really be able to tell whether this was just a moment where they did their job for the sake of it, or they were actually really engrossed in the process. So as far as working with Antony, I met him earlier on at film school, and I was always intrigued by him because he was a cinematographer before he stepped into his directing role. When we did this project together, when we did our honors degree. So seeing him and how much attention to detail and how much excellence he put into his work, I really I saw it as a challenge to step out of my comfort zone a little bit, because Antony can be a bit of an intimidating presence just because creatively he is really brilliant. So when he told me about the story and I read the script and I saw how he just tied the beginning to the end, and I knew that this was a project that I had to be a part of, and I knew that I'd learn a lot from him. So it was a really insightful process for sure.
Also, I think the funny thing about our school, or the interesting thing about our school, is that we are all forced to be together on set. Even if you're like visual effects artist or like editor, whatever, you have to be on set, and it's required. And I think is great for student directors like I was when I was shooting at Bloom, because Roba is not only the editor, she was also the script supervisor on set. And having the editor on set is great because you can sort of like manage time. And if you don't have a lot of time, you can say, are you going to be happy with this shot? You know, and then the editor is not going to be angry at you, and everything like works like perfectly because like everyone is in sync on set. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that streamlines a lot of the workflow, doesn't it? Working towards post-production, because it means that a lot of the shared decisions, as you say, of which take you use, or making sure that you've got the right amount of information in the can, you can decide upon those decisions in the moment on the set, and then move on or take advantage of the situation. Very interesting. Good notes for young filmmakers there, I think. And Josh, tell us about your journey into producing.
So I actually joined the postgrad program a little bit late. So it was kind of like a happy accident that I joined Antony's team. But I really enjoyed working with Antony because he is also his second degree he's doing. So he's got a bit of like real world experience. And yeah, so we worked together well. There was one day, we were like 4 days in shooting, and me and Antony went to go pick up these like bath tiles. And we were tired, it's been a long day, and me and him we were sitting there busy pasting them to the wall. And I kind of remember that moment a lot, because that's kind of what filmmaking is, that little bit extra you do just to get that shot the next morning when everyone else is going home. You're still pushing, you're still doing that.
I think early in your careers, those are the things, those are the kind of memories that you kind of hark back to. I think they're the golden moments.
Yes, definitely.
Before things get complicated.
Yeah, and I just remember Josh joining our crew later, but he was just a great asset to the film, because what people don't realize is what happens behind the scenes. And we shot this whole thing during COVID. And I don't know other countries, but in South Africa, the lockdown was pretty extreme from March until like October. So we were struggling every single week, like getting cast members, losing cast members, getting locations, losing locations, because we kept like changing dates. I think we were shooting around like May, and we ended up shooting in November in 2020. So even Stefan, he only joined the crew like a week or like 2 weeks before shooting. So he was like a lifesaver. Yeah.
So it sounds like lots of firefighting having to be done in the moment in the production. Well done for getting through it all. Stefan, tell us about your journey into the film and your work.
Yes, well, thank you for having us, Chris, and hello to everyone watching. So I am Stefan Erasmus. I am an actor. I studied at UCT, graduated in 2012, which feels like a lifetime ago. And I've been acting ever since. I remember getting an email from my agent one day about a short film that the students at AFTA want to do. And I remember reading the brief. And for me, it's always important to give back at some point. I always feel like as an actor, I need to always remember my roots and remember where I came from as well. So it's important that I do something and be part of, student films and be part of people who are still learning, which is so wonderful. And so I read some of the script and I just went, yes, I need to be part of this production. Then I got hold of Antony and we started talking, and one thing led to another, and I found myself on set during COVID in a pool.
Well, you're extremely good speaker, but your character's remarkably silent in the film.
Oh, it happens all the time.
It must be. I always seem to get the roles that talk a lot, so I'm not really used to playing the parts that do the kind of mysterious silence. How do you feel out a performance when you're receiving lots of input from the other characters, but you yourself are having to stay quite still and stable in the center of it all?
Yeah, so I mean, you said it there, when you're receiving input. So the main thing, every actor will tell you, it's listening. So I always just listen to what the other actors are saying. But then on top of that, I think part of my training was in physical theater. So it was in expressing emotion or expressing some form of communication through your body. And I always think that that's part of the strong point and why I tend to get roles that don't talk a lot and tend to be more silent or brooding or sort of thinking and heady. For me, it's always about understanding, the narrative and understanding the character's journey, and then just thinking it in that moment. And that's all it requires, because the camera doesn't lie. It picks up all the little eye movements and thoughts that go on in your head. And it's just important to think those things through as the other character also talking to you and the situations around you.
Great. Thank you. So let's take a little look at a clip from the film.
I saw the most mesmerizing thing I have ever seen. A bloom of jellyfish all around us. Peace surrounded by such a terrifying beauty. The immortal jellyfish is a special one. When it feels threatened or sick, it goes to settle on the sea floor. It rests there for a while and is reborn, starting life again, then swims back to the surface of the ocean. Your father is still impatient to know if you're a girl or a boy. But all these years, working at St. Matthew's, taught me that body and mind are not always aligned. You can create your own light, like a jellyfish. All I want to do is to feel your chest on mine. I haven't thought of a girl's name yet, but if you are a boy, I want to call you
Nick! Your father was the one who wanted to pick you up, but a business trip came up. Oh, Nick. If only your mother could have seen the man that you've transformed into during this process, she would be so proud. But this is part of the journey. I strongly urge you to come back and complete the 6 months program. For now, take the tablets twice a day or whenever you get the urge. Oh, I nearly forgot. Your father left this for you. Send him a message when you get home, okay? And remember, be a real man.
So in that clip, we get a taste of how Nick is exposed to conversion therapy, which obviously is an extremely controversial subject. Antony, when you decided to frame Nick within that context at the beginning of the film, what were your feelings about how that would charge the character going forward?
So speaking about conversion therapy is very controversial, but still until today, there's many countries, like most of the countries, they don't have any ban laws or registration against conversion therapy. There's a lot of news that you can look up to in the UK and the US discussing banning for good conversion therapy. And I think as a queer person, I always felt that when you're not out of the closet, you always tend to feel that if you can take a pill or fix it in any way, you would do it, you know? That's personally. But I think A Bloom was part of my thesis. So my whole goal was to write the novel and create the short film at the same time. And when I'm still writing the novel, but in the novel you can see how you can see Nick before conversion therapy and when he's in conversion therapy, and then in the short film you can see him after that. And I think it's very important to him because in the main story, the voice of the mom, she used to work at the conversion therapy center, and when he listens to her telling him that he can be whoever he wants to be and everything will be okay, I think he finds a lot of comfort in that with someone that is familiar, but he doesn't really know.
Yeah, it seems that conversion therapy kind of sits on it takes advantage of a kind of modesty of character that the majority of people have, where they're open to the notion that there might be things about themselves that need to change or alter or adapt as they grow older and form their identities. And conversion therapy seems to kind of hijack that shred of doubt in people's personalities about themselves, and it seems to do it in the most kind of manipulative way. It's kind of remarkable that such a medieval process could still exist, really, but it is so prevalent, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I remember when I was writing A Bloom, I was reading the book Boy Erased by Garrett Conley, and you can see how bad he gets. And the thing is, like, it hasn't been proved that you can change anyone's sexual orientation or gender just by going through this process. And even when I was writing A Bloom in 2020, I remember reading articles that a girl in India called Coll, she committed suicide. In 2015 in South Africa, there was a lot of boys murdered because they were tortured through conversion therapy. And all of this is backed up with religious thinking, you know? And it's just kind of sad that we still some people, some queer people, they have to go through it trying to change themselves to be accepted by family members or like friends or society in general.
Stefan, in the behind the scenes footage that you guys sent, you discussed how Nick, a lot of the dialogue a lot of the thinking for Nick is his place in society and how society views him or accepts him. That's quite a driver for you.
Yeah. Look, so I find that for Nick, there was this fighting between what he believes, what society wants him to believe, and then what the conversion therapy is also teaching him to believe. And for him, there was this disconnect between it all because he doesn't know exactly what he's feeling, but he's feeling something. And then society tells him, no, you need to be doing this or that's how you need to go. And all these labels get placed onto everything. And even he, at some point, with his friend, he says he labels her as a lesbian, and that's what he says: "You are a lesbian," because now gets roped into where society is taking him, but also where the conversion therapy is taking him to place him in place, to put him in a place, to put him in a box. And I think he grapples with that so deeply. And just as a side note for my general view on society, I think when playing queer characters, we will often find that there is this constant battle between what the outside world thinks and then what's going on in here. Because what's going on in here is the truth. And then it suddenly gets juxtaposed or like this conflict with the outside world because they don't get it. No one will ever get what's going on in here. And it's very difficult for us humans to explain what we're feeling. Language is such a clumsy way of communicating, I find. And we find it very difficult to explain the things that are happening to us. And then suddenly other people are telling you what to do, but they're also struggling to explain what they're doing. So no one really knows what's going on, but yay, we've got rules and boxes. Okay.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was diagnosed as autistic, and a lot of things in this film's got a kind of rosebud enigma to the center of the character, you know, which we'll see in a clip later. But it's got this kind of enigmatic feel towards the center, which obviously allows everybody in the audience to project upon the film what they feel and what they strike. And for me, the film really it reflected to me a lot of the experiences I've had as an autistic person, which is that you receive a lot of negative feedback from the world, and you're constantly being told that you're wrong, but you're only wrong because you're different. You're not wrong because you're difficult or malicious or you want to cause trouble. And there seemed to be a lot of that in Nick and in the relationship with his friends. And even in the date scene, there seemed to be that sense of rejection in there as well, which there seemed to be a core of kind of sadness to Nick.
Yeah, Nick is. I was watching it again, and I felt that sadness when I was watching it again for him, and it is that he doesn't quite know what to do. And then when I taught at a high school for kids with learning disabilities, and we dealt with autism and we dealt with Asperger's and everything, and so a lot of the time, when approached with conflict, you shut down. You don't know what to do, so you retreat. And I felt that with Nick a lot of the time. Like you could see that he was kind of thinking about things and trying to make sense of it, and he had lots of thoughts, but he didn't know how to express them. And then sometimes it comes across as rude or wrong, or he hurts people in the process. And you know, it's just he doesn't have the language, the words, the things. He doesn't know yet.
Yeah, and I think that's also a thing that you can see in queer people as well. Like when you describe Nick as being very silent and like to himself, I think there's a lot of queer people out there that they struggle and they don't talk to friends or families because they don't wanna be out. They don't wanna struggle with this. They don't wanna upset anyone. But I think Nick has a good heart and he goes through conversion therapy because he doesn't know what's happening, but he knows that can maybe damage people, and he rather kind of like sacrifice himself and just like fix himself in a way so everyone else can just chill.
And Ropa, there's the running visual theme of the jellyfish, which to me made me think of when there's a thing called autistic burnout, where you get wounded by your experiences and you need to kind of retreat from society and recover. That seems to be a visual theme throughout the film and in the Tape of the Mother. I mean, the visuals and the balance and the rhythm of the way that you've cut the visuals together seems very, very assured.
Yeah. With my own queer journey, what I realized is that when I wanted people to watch the film, I didn't want them to approach it as, okay, I'm sitting down and I'm watching Journey. I wanted them to see a young man figure out his love life, you know? You have where his mother introduces the idea of the jellyfish, and the beautiful metal the jellyfish feels threatened. It sinks to the bottom of the ocean and, you know, sort of figures itself out to be reborn again. And that's pretty much the queer journey, especially if you're not allowed to express yourself from the beginning. You kind of go about society being who you're expected to be. And then once you realize that there's a disconnect between who you're expected to be and who you actually are, you kind of retreat within yourself to find that expression where when you're reborn again, you can be fully who you are. So I loved the fact that when we introduced it at the beginning and at the end, it was from the perspective of the mother. But when you saw Nick interact with it, when it was with the necklace with the jellyfish, and yet that was something that he gave to his ex-girlfriend, you know, like it's that thing of like bisexuality where that there's love in both genders, both of these, him in his masculine form and him in his, I guess, more feministic form, in whether interacting with the stranger or interacting with his love. The jellyfish can exist in both, but yet it signifies two different things, because at the end of the film, you see Nick drop the necklace into the pool, which kind of symbolizes the other chapter of him sinking to the bottom. And during the credits, you see a small jellyfish kind of in the background with the credits. So it's kind of like he's coming back into that realization that he can just be who he wants to be. He doesn't necessarily have to conform to society's norms of being one way or the other, but as long as he gets to express himself, which is what nature does, which is a gift that nature gives us, we don't have to rely on outside voices to let us know who we are. If we just allow the process to happen towards us, you can retreat within yourself, and then when you're reborn again, you can come out as you really are. So I love the fact that when you hear the from the mother's perspective at the beginning, you're not really sure what she means, but as you see Nick go through his journey and she ties it at the end, it's kind of open-ended to see if you're really paying attention. Are you really paying attention to Nick's journey? Are you really intentional about respecting him as a person, as opposed to just saying, he's somebody that I can never relate to, I don't really want to connect? So I liked the fact that we could use something in nature to relate to what we go through ourselves that people wouldn't actually know about, you know? Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a little ad break there now, and then we'll come back to discuss the film a little more.
Julle wat hier sit, is ons uitverkorenes. Die Kanaries van 1985.
Zodra je kookje oopstaan, dan vlieg jy nie weg.
Wat ons doen is onwettig, Wolfgang.
Ek weet nie wat jy volgende gaan wil sê nie, maar ek wil dit nie hoor nie.
Ons sing in 'n koor, maar ons het nie 'n stem nie.
So just to continue this conversation, I just had a thought. Josh, when it comes to producing films, obviously characters can be reduced into labels, and films can too. So I suppose with this film, how's it been trying to communicate the film, sell the film, promote the film? And because obviously a lot of people want to reduce films very quickly to their simplest elements, like you know, certain films are just called gay films, and that's it. You know, there's no other complexity to the film whatsoever. It's just that, and it goes in that DVD section. So how's it been trying to defend the making of, protect Antony and the process in your producing, and then sell the finished product? What has that journey been like for you?
I think, Antony's been doing a lot of the selling of the film post, like after we've made it and everything. But yeah, it's also good to remember, like you said, I don't think gay film is a genre. The film still has its genre, but people like to say, oh, LGBTQ plus film or gay film, and I don't think we should actually put films in that kind of category or label it as that even. But yeah, people do love doing that. But yeah, also it was made during COVID. There weren't a lot of things happening. Film festivals weren't happening. They were doing very reduced film festivals. It was all online. Yeah, it hasn't been easy the following year to try and get the film out there. But between myself and Antony, we've been really pushing it hard, getting into film festivals, and yeah, we've got some great responses, met some really great people, and yeah.
And
I think also just adding up to that, even though the film wasn't created to be watched as a queer film, we wanted as a crew to distribute this film as a queer film because we also struggle within our own community. And I think a great example is we participated in Alpha's Fusion LA, and we were the only bisexual film inside of like 40 other gay films. So to me, it was really important not to market the film as a gay short film, but also defend, like the other letters in the community, because most of the representation comes from like only gay films.
There's quite a few of working out from Nick's character onwards. There's quite a few mysteries in the films. Mysteries about what's happened to characters in the past. Things are kind of touched on but never fully explained. Obviously, Nick's own internal world is slowly revealed to us by his actions, not necessarily by his words. And then you've got this kind of layering system that you do with the past, overlaying the voice of the mother, and then you've got this kind of mysterious, enigmatic relationship with the girlfriend, where we're not quite sure if she's here or not, if she's in his mind, if this is a direct memory, or if this is some kind of haunting almost. We'll take a look at a clip of this, and then we'll discuss it.
Have you ever been in love?
Yeah. Just once, I think. You?
Same. Just once. I think.
How was it?
The sweetest. First serious relationship. First one I brought home. First one sleeping in my bed.
And? What happened?
A lot. Love makes you wonder. You feel like you want to know it all.
Move in together. Isn't it a bit soon for that, Nick?
We practically live together already. What? I'm serious about us. I'm yours.
Jellyfish. What's your darkest secret, Nick?
What are you even saying?
If you want me to move in with you, then I need to know everything about you. And tell me your darkest secret.
And what if you don't like what I have to share?
Nick. Don't be silly. I'm yours.
Sounds quite intense.
There we go. So in the film, we've got quite a really interesting use of layered of layering, where you've used past character information. You also use texts on the screen and voice notes on the screen, which I thought was really interesting. I thought that the introduction of mobile phones into the modern world would be the death of cinema and modern narratives, but it's actually starting to help, because now you can bring in characters and circumstance and plot twists via a text or via a voice note, and it really charges the drum, moves the drum forward really quickly. Antony, when you wrote the film, how did these kind of layerings come together? What brought you to these decisions?
I think the main inspiration was to create a bisexual character So normally when I would like watch films that they deal with a bisexual character, they tend to be the male bisexual character. He's normally in a relationship with a wife and he has kids, and then he sort of betrays the female partner to be with another guy. And I didn't want that to be the case for Nick, because in my personal experience, it hasn't been my personal experience as a, as a queer person, as a bisexual guy. So it was important to people to understand that if you are bisexual or pansexual, you're not playing with people. You're not trying to be shady. You're not trying to be strategic. You can still be trusted. You can still love this person because you're not trying to be promiscuous or have it all, because that's what people normally say, like you're trying to have it all. And I think that was the main reason for having the girl and the stranger in different timelines, and they kind of like merge at points because that's how Nick sees them, but she represents the past, a past relationship, and the stranger represents the present and hopefully the future as well to Nick.
And you use text messages and voice notes to create quite a lot of pressure from his friends. That pressure seems to begin from the conversion therapy opening all the way through the film. There seems to be a constant pushing towards him, like asking him to do things, be places, speak, say what he means. There seems a lot of pressure constantly at him. Stefan, how did you deal with that when you were designing the character's journey?
Yeah, so the constant pressure and the cell phone actually brings back to, you can't escape the real world. And with these mobile devices that we have now, it's very difficult. Sure, we can just turn them off, but I mean, who wants to do that, right? So it forms this almost window into these friends, which he's lost connection with. The only time we even say in the film that he hasn't really spoken to any of them. They don't know what's happened to him. And so suddenly when he's there and in cell phone reception again, suddenly he gets bombarded with all of these text, and he wants to connect, he wants to try, but he's being slowly chipped away, and they can see him and the blue ticks that go off as well. And it also shows his, what I would say is slight apathy towards the things that's happening, because he wants to disconnect from it. He doesn't quite know all this information. Is almost like it's boring into him at this point, and he's just sitting there going, I want to go somewhere else. I want to escape it, but it's my only tool to communicate with people, because I know this. I don't know this that's going on around me. So it is that link, because he also communicates with a stranger through this device that is causing so much pain, but also is the doorway to something so wonderful for him. And just sorry, I just had a brainwave now. I thought when you said that in the introduction of mobile phones, I miss flip phones, because they used to punctuate the ends of scenes. I missed that. I was watching a show that was set in the 2000s, and I just missed that little thing that right at the end, like, yes, I'm going to go, and you just clap it and you go. Hoping that with the introduction of all the foldable phones that we're going to see a return of the clap at the end, just because it's so great. And I find that that's also what happens in A Bloom a lot, is that these little pings that go off, they punctuate these moments. They give you that sense of urgency. I mean, when your phone vibrates in your pocket, there's a little bit of a nervous tick. There's anxiety that comes in. You want to know what's going on there. And I feel that that's also happening with Nick sometimes, is that he goes, oh, there's a ping, there's a grinder ping that goes off, and it's immediately in public. He doesn't know what to do, and he needs to escape. He needs to run. So I felt that was a nice little push, this push of technology in cinema as well, and in this film.
And Ropa, when you get into the edit and you have to watch the film over and over and over again, how on earth do you keep perspective? Because like I was thinking about the internal battle of Nick. Like he gets lost, obviously, in a lot of what's going on. He's kind of floating around, as the imagery suggests, in this kind of subterranean world, trying to find his way through. And as an editor, when you're watching, just how do you keep your eye on the audience's viewpoint and And how do you make these decisions?
Yeah. Honestly, like that's my favorite part is watching it over and over and over again, because then I fall in love with the characters. I fall in love with the moments I'm anticipating. Like I loved when the friend wanted to watch the movie with the jellyfish. I fell in love with that line, and I always used to say that line to Antony all the time just to make him laugh. But it's just beautiful because as an editor, I know what's happening. As I cut it, I want to make sure that I am not giving away the story by rushing moments before. So like the moments that are important to Nick, when he is alone with the scene where we're revealing that he actually took the jacket, the cafe, I'm anticipating, like, if I was an audience member and I didn't catch that, how would I want to feel when I see that? Do I actually want to be intrigued by that moment, or do I want to say he didn't have that jacket on before? So I really try and place myself in the shoes of the audience member once I watch it a couple times. And then obviously the perfectionist comes in, where you want everything to be technically correct, but there's only so much you can do. I just try my best to just service the honesty of the story, the honesty of the character themselves. And because it was so fun with the text messages coming up, it kind of created a lot of room. Because it's only 24 minutes, we got to like really introduce like the relationship that he had with his female friend, where she was actually queer and she knew what was going on with him. She kind of had an idea, but we didn't actually get to see them interact between each other. But whenever those text messages popped up, it was at a very, I guess, it was at a point where like Nick is going through his own sort of journey. So I just tried to like put myself in the character's shoes and put myself in the audience's shoes and see how best can we tie it together. Then obviously with Antony's guidance, just making sure everything makes sense, is just like the best thing to have as well. So it worked out all right, I think. Yeah.
So it feels like a lot of your work is very empathetic towards all the different elements in the film and in the audience.
Yes, of course.
Cool. So now we're going to do some Q&As. We've got some questions coming in from our live viewers. The first thing I'd like to ask for you, Josh and Antony, is if someone's made a short film, cobbled together something with their iPhone and cut it together, and they want to get in touch with festivals and try and get onto the festival circuit, which is obviously still really vital for new filmmakers, both to show the films and to meet people and grow your network. How do you have any kind of killer tips for getting people in there?
I guess in my personal experience, you should definitely go to filmfreeway.com, and you can see all the festivals around the world, and you can just like submit your film and apply through the website. But I think you should know, what do you want to do with your film before even you shoot it? Like, is it important, the views, to be in festivals? Why do you want to be in festivals? Because in my personal experience, when I was creating a Bloom, I was already a fan of Peccadillo Pictures. I was watching Jamie, First Feelings from London. I was watching A Welcome Stranger. And those short films were the ones that serve as an inspiration for me to be, oh, if this short film connected with me and I want to make a short film, I want another Antony out there to watch a Bloom in Peccadillo Pictures and just watch it for free, you know? And that was my goal since the beginning, for people to watch it. Yeah.
And Josh, from your point of view as the producer, obviously one thing that was shocking to me when I started making films was just how expensive it can be to enter into a lot of festivals. I don't know if that's always still the case, because I haven't done it in a while. But how would you navigate it for a first-time filmmaker?
I think what's really important is to never stop talking about your film. Always kind of, even before you start making it, kind of people come onto set or while you're busy editing, just you'll be amazed by what opportunities, what people, like connections you make by just talking about your work all the time. I think that's really important, even before you start, and then after it's done, just always bringing it up, bringing it in conversation. I know you don't want to force someone to watch your short film, but it's always nice like to talk about it, and then people would say, oh, have you heard of this platform, or have you heard of this film festival, or I might have entered here. So I think it's important to just always bring up your work and kind of keep that passion going.
Perhaps have a billboard made.
Yeah.
Which you can
sure.
update,
Yeah.
you know, currently shooting, currently in post-production, something like that. Okay, we've got a question from Travis. It says, they say it's refreshing to see a film that deals with the aftermath of conversion therapy, but was there a reason you chose to distance the family in the narrative of the film?
Yes and no. The main reason was in the first draft of the script, we saw a lot of the father. He was in the film, but because of COVID, we didn't have the chance to get an actor to come and play the father for free in the dates that we wanted to shoot. So it was like we had to get rid of the father, but he was very present in the story, interacting with Nick.
Yeah, I think that's a common denominator for many films, is that artistic choices can be made just by practical circumstance, and they seem like very clever, chosen moments. Part of the magic of film, really.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, Stefan, from Marie. She asked, how did you prepare for such an emotionally charged character, and what was it like letting go of the character after the film?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the question. As I prepare for any character, the main thing I try and do is always place myself in the shoes of the character. And once that process is done, it's really just standing in a room and closing my eyes. That's really what I do, and just try and envision what I see as the character. And then from there, I talk to as many people as I possibly can. So I talk to Antony, I talk to Ropa, I talk to people on set. I try and gauge, because at the end of the day, filmmaking and creating this very difficult thing that we're trying to do is emulate life in some way. You can't do it on your own. It's a collaborative process. Filmmaking is what it is. It's collaborative by nature, and everyone has a say in it. And I think the character also feeds off of a lot of people. One of the things a question that often comes up, and it's linked to this one in my preparation, is that how can you as a straight man play a queer character? Which is, I get that question a lot because I end up playing a lot of queer characters.
Well, you just have sex with a man. That's the easiest answer.
That's the easiest one.
That would be my advice.
Yeah.
It's called research. You can probably deduct it off tax. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's just character research, guys. Character research. What I say is that, how do you play queer? Like, what does that mean? Like, when people say that to me, it's like, what does it mean? Like, what do I do with my hands if I play queer? Like, what do I do with my feet? Like, I don't even understand that. And the main thing I always tell people is that I just focus on the love. That's what I play, is I play love. It's just the character struggling with love. They don't know what to do with this love that they have and that they're feeling inside of them. And that I can play, because that I know love. And when creating the nuances of, what it truly means to be a queer person growing up in society, and especially in societies that don't deem what you're doing and don't see it, and parents that don't understand what's going on, and especially within people of color communities, that there's a lot of not talking about, these things. So I would often chat to Antony, and I would often chat to the people on set, and I have friends who I would ask advice on and check things with them, because it's important that I remain truthful to the people that find Nick represents them, that they feel that this character is them. They are Nick, so I find that that's sort of my process going through it. And then to latch on to the end of that, how I let go of a character at the end is I have a little ritual. I'm very ritualistic when it comes to my characters, just because I find that maybe it's because I'm from, South Africa, African continent. Maybe there's something there in my heritage that I love a good ritual. But I do often take the call sheet and I start ripping it up after we're done, and I throw it away. And then I slowly let go of this character that I played. And the one thing I always say to the character is I say, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to tell your story. Thank you for allowing me to explore the conflict that you face, the difficulties. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to also learn, because I end up learning from these characters. You know, they teach me something, and we need to give thanks to that.
Often playing a character can really key into something in your subconscious that you're not aware that you've keyed into. So a lot of actors I've observed will do things like they'll shave their heads after they finish filming. They'll just kind of like have to get this like some kind of returning to zero thing.
Yes,
to get the thing out of there.
I've finished now on set recently on a different project, and I just feel the need, because I was there for 3 months, and then I went from 3 months into another project for a very short, brief period of time, and now I feel the need to shave, to dye my hair blonde and shave everything off. There's just this need. Exactly. There's this deep need within me. I messaged my agent and I was like, I need this. I need to just dye my hair blonde. I'm sorry. This is what I'm going to look like for the next couple of months. There's this need in me just to let go and like feel like a different person for a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard because being an actor, you're often just trapped visually. You know, they want you to look the same. They want you to look like the thing as when you walked in. Okay, a question from Craig. Craig's very pleased, Ropa, that you're here as an editor in a film. We very rarely have editors on with us, so thank you for joining us. Craig simply says, what was the most challenging thing about editing this film in particular?
I think it was making sure that I don't project my own journey into Nick's journey. Because I'm transgender, and I feel like the same way that, well, with the way I relate it is the way I deal with my sense of dysphoria is kind of similar to the way Nick is battling his one relationship with his other relationship. So I wanted to make sure that I never felt the need to put myself in Nick's shoes and try and tell my own story, but instead kept a good enough distance to recognize that this is what he needs to go through to figure out what he is experiencing. And if people watching the film back can really can see him for who he is more important than it looking like a really well technically done film, cut on beat, on pace, really trying to emphasize one relationship is more important than the other. I just wanted to make sure that there was a perfect balance. So I really tried to just be as honest as possible within that without feeling the need to push the queer narrative too much, if that makes any sense at all.
I think it's very tempting. Like I've mainly worked as an actor and a writer, and it's always tempting to find those kind of bridges of meeting between you and the character or you and the storyline. But you do have to, as you say, live with a small dose of caution there, because just because it's powerful to you doesn't mean it's necessarily going to serve the narrative. I think a good example of that for actors is when they say, I don't think my character would say that. And I think what they're really saying is, I don't know why my character would say that. You know, I can't think of a circumstance, but that's usually a challenge to the creative to actually stretch their expectations and their mind to embrace a different viewpoint. So thank you, Ropa. Final one from Trevor. Bisexuality is a big part of the film. Was there any films that were good reference points or influences from a bisexual perspective?
I had a whole list that I cannot remember right now, but Call Me By Your Name, the book, was a big reference, not the movie, because I think in the movie they don't really represent him as a bisexual character, but in the book you can really see him having two relationships in different times, and it really works for Elliot. That's the only references that it comes to mind, and I think it's because I watch a lot of them, but none of them really dealt with bisexuality in the way that maybe A. Bloom tries to approach it.
Josh, were there any references that charged your work on the film?
Yeah, I'm also kind of hitting a blank like Antony now. But yeah, before we watched it, we watched, what was it, Normal People. And I think not the sexuality part, but just how the characters are brought forward, like the way they communicate without actually like speaking so much and kind of internalizing things. Yeah, was a big part for me and Antony. And yeah, otherwise can't think of anything at the moment.
Great. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. A reminder to everybody watching, the film is available via Peccadillo on YouTube. You can watch it for free with advertisements, or you can pay a small charge, which will fund Antony and Josh's future film careers. Give them some royalties. We all like to get those. You can watch it on YouTube. Go to the Peccadillo YouTube page and you'll find it there. But right now, we have to thank the BFI for their continued support for this series. And we'll leave you with a trailer for a film called Wound. But right now, thank you guys. Thanks so much for joining us. And I really do recommend the film. So do go and see it, guys. Okay. Take care. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Ndizawuthanda uba ke uqinise isandla kule ntwana. Ya, le ntwana icela ubhetyebhetye mani, icela uethe-ethe le ntwana.
Evuye ubona Xolani ntantazelo.
Ayazi mosasekwazi uthetha ngezinto ezenzekileyo. Ingxaki yakho ndiyayibona wena. Uyawuyika into oyifunayo.
Hayo, ndivuya kakhulu kumnandi uba indoda.